Welcome back, everybody. We're only about 2 months late, but we're here for it. So we hope you're here for it too. And this is the off season. Lots of work to be done if you're hitting the gas and keeping things moving. But we're always here having fun, talking about anything and everything first related for some PCH content with our PCH Peach Pit crew. We got some topics for some, again, championship review, a little bit review of our PCH season for the 2023 season, as well as some general conversation about either changes coming in first or changes, general speculation or conversation around changes we might like to see in first. But always just tossing ideas out there, seeing what we come up with. But before we get started, we'll make the general usual disclaimer. Any views or opinions shared on the show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of Peach Pit, any FRC team, First, Georgia First, South Carolina First, or any of their affiliates and sponsors. So the idea behind the show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree District. We're going to be talking about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you see us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. With that said, we'll go around and do some introductions. My name is Kellen Hill, a mentor with Team 1746, Otto out of Cumming, Georgia. Who's up next?
David Allred. Oh, sorry, man. David Allred. Mentor for 4451 out of Lawrence and Fountain Inn High Schools in South Carolina. Anyway.
Brian Carlson, a strategy mentor with Ignite Robotics 6829 in Swanee, Georgia.
Hi, I'm Thomas Priego. I'm a retired scouting and strategy mentor from Team 1746.
Gotcha. Well,
we should probably organize who's going to speak in what order. We always keep doing that.
Whatever.
It's part of the chaos reign.
Hell yeah.
Part of the chaos. Yeah. Couldn't be bothered to spend 15 seconds writing 4 names in a specific order.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. We're going to jump into some fun discussion here. Obviously, championships, I think, happened pretty much exactly 2 months ago, back in April, over in Houston. But we've got some, I think, a lot of awesome stuff to talk about for just the general championship experience, as well as then our Peachtree team's experiences at that event. So any just, I guess, general thoughts related to the championship event for the folks we got here?
Well, even with the extra teams they added this year, the fields were still very deep. At least from my opinion, Galileo's that we were on was very deep, very, very deep. I felt it was too crowded, the whole event. It was very tight packed end to end. I mean, I know First did the best they could in the venue they had. It just seemed a little overstuffed for my tastes, but I still had a fun time.
It was at least an improvement. Instead of having the 6 fields in a row, to be able to have the 8 fields and only have to walk in the set of fields from the end, instead of some teams having to walk 6 fields down in order to get to there. So that was at least some improvement, because we've drawn the unlucky card on that one a few times for having to walk all the way down to the end, as well as still being the furthest teams away from the practice field. So I liked that at least the pit seemed a little bit smaller for not being quite as much of a mass to wade through from past experience. But yeah, I think similar note to you is that I felt like the divisions were pretty deep. I think we may have lacked a little bit of the top end talent. I think we had 1538 was like the clear number one, but I think it was crowded after that. But I think nobody else was really up on that 1538 tier for the speed. Not that a lot of the other divisions had that much depth, but they were really the targeted one. But I think that really didn't have too much of an impact, because once you chop it down match to match, if your combination of 3 teams worked well together. You could take on anybody on any given Sunday or whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah, I had this Worlds experience for the students was fantastic. Um, they we came in thinking, oh well, I'm gonna have to motivate students to try and convince them to go to all of these conferences that first we'll do. Like Karthik hosts the Karthik's, I forget the name of his conference, but Karthik's conference and all the other
effective for
auxiliary
strategies.
effective for strategies of trying to convince the kids to go to these things that will help them next year. And then by the end of it, the kids are coming to us and going, hey, this thing is happening in 30 minutes, can you facilitate our travel? It's like, all righty, here we go, let's go walk the entire convention center.
So I think most people are aware that we wound up getting to Einstein, which is in its obviously its own cool thing.
Oh yeah, that also happened.
That too.
Yeah, whatever.
But the conferences.
The conferences are life changing.
I think was one of the cooler things, and what Thomas is alluding to here is that even if we hadn't, if we just got picked and played in elims, this would have been a lifetime experience for the students we had going. We brought 38 students, which is the most ever we brought as a team. None of them had been to championships before, so it was very much a eye-opening experience on that front. But with how we did last season, how we did this year, our real goal this season was to get to Houston. That was it. That was like top tier goal is get to Houston. Some students had put on their get to Einstein, but it was not at all the priority goal, which
at one point it had become a meme was, oh guys, this robot can make it to Einstein, which was said often when the robot was very bad.
But what I think was so amazing about it is that the experience was so much. Us going as far as we did was an entire surprise. Somehow we just kept winning and didn't stop to ask questions. But again, what Thomas was saying, the focus was on using the event experience as a learning process, which I think every team should do in any situation. But there was a lot of priority spent on, all right, there's downtime in the pits. Go wander around and talk to these teams, both in our division and out, to go check out their robots, see what they're doing, what cool stuff they're doing, ask questions, go to conferences and events to really have that push to learn from the experience and build that depth of experience to make the team any better, to do any better next year. We had a couple of whiffs this season. Somehow wound up turning out a lot better than anybody on our team expected. But yeah, I think any focus on using the experience as best you can to really develop your team and bolster your ranks for the next season and seasons beyond that.
And something that was really cool from our perspective because the goal had already really been reached for the season of getting to Worlds. In previous years, Otto's goal had been, oh, let's get to Worlds and then see how, make it really far at Worlds. And the goal was just to get to Worlds. How everything else was just extra and it just kind of kept piling on was just fantastic. All the students had a phenomenal time. Winning kind of is fun, apparently. So it was fantastic. Getting to talk to the students and also all the other mentors on the other teams, it's a unique experience, and a lot of teams need to probably getting to Worlds is a really big goal, and that should a lot of teams should strive to do that.
Yeah, the one of the things that I like that they did this year was actually having Einstein be the same format as the playoffs. I was not a big fan of the round robin thing. It's like you advance and you rinse and repeat, right? Whatever structure best 2 out of 3 or double elimination. Either way, it's the same thing. So there's, it feels the same. I really like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that really helped. The buildup of that double elimination tournament, just to know, all right, they look like they're the favorite, kind of coming through the upper bracket, while they got to kind of win out through the lower, not having to do obviously you'll wind up playing a team again if things work out right.
Right.
But you don't have the silly tiebreakers for, all right, we're going to really prioritize climbing points or something like that forces teams through that round robin to really play matches differently than they had been.
Yeah.
But
Why don't we go down through the Peachtree teams that were there and just see how it came out, even though it's 2 months late.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think the audience that watches this probably knows that already.
Okay.
No.
I can speed
Gotta
through
get that.
those. I can speed through the teams. First, just in alphabetical order in terms of division, I think is the Archimedes division had one PCH team, Team 1102. They ended up seeded 9th overall with a record of 8-2, and ended up playing as the 8th seed alliance captain. In Elam's, they won their first match, notably against the heavily favored 254-2056 alliance. After which case the luck kind of ran out, and they ended up bouncing out in 3 matches in Elims. Next up, we have the Hopper division. There are 3 teams in the Hopper division: Team 1311, Team 8736, and Team 9260. None of these teams played in Elims. However, 8736 finished ranked highest out of the 3, ranked 56 with a record of 5-5. Next up, we have the Milstein division. The Milstein division had 3 teams and was the division that a most likely PCH Super Alliance was to be formed. However, this did not happen. The first team in the division, Team 1414, ended up seeding 11th with a record of 7-3, and were the third bot of the first seeded alliance. Their division fought all the way to finals. However, they lost in a hard-fought 3-game series, and their team ended up winning the quality award for their field. Team 1683 finished seeded 1 spot higher than Team 1414 with a record of 7-3. In playoffs, they ended up being the 4th bot of the 8-seeded alliance, and their alliance went 0-2. However, they did not play a match during that. They did not play a match in Elims. Next up, Team 2974 ended up seeded 44th with a record of 4-6 in their division. Just a quick side note: they had the schedule of death. And in playoffs, they were the 3rd bot of the 8th seed with Team 1683, and also went 0-2. Their team won the Gracious Professionalism Award. And the Newton division.
That Milstein division was pretty nuts for PCH teams. IHOP being a 3rd bot on a 1 seed. I mean, based off how they're playing it, like district champs.
They were playing great.
That's crazy.
Great.
And they, in my opinion, should have won finals had there not been a quite bad inside the frame perimeter contact against them in those finals.
Damage. Yeah, that was tragic. But I got down there to watch them play in those matches, and they were playing great.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to skip this division for last. Next up, we have the Curie division. The Curie division had 3 Peachtree District teams. Team 1771, who ended up seeded 16th with a record of 5-5. As playoffs, they were picked as a 4th spot as a 5th seed and went 0-2 in Elims, only playing their 2nd match. 343 ended up ranked 25th with a record of 6-4, and 3489 finished ranked 65th with a record of 4-6. And the Galileo division, we had 2 PCH teams, 4451 and 7451. 4451 ended up as the 7th seed and ended up being the 6th seed alliance captain. In Elims, they went 0-2, and after their first match, they ended up benching themselves in lieu of their 4th bot. Team 7451 ended up seeding 69th with a record of 3-7, and was not selected to play in Elims. In the Johnson division, we have 2 PCH teams, Team 6919 and Team 281, the Green Villains. 6919 seeded 34th with a record of 6-4, while 281 seeded 22nd with also a record of 6-4. 6919 ended up being the 4th bot of the 4th seed alliance and went 2-2 in Elims, though they did not get to play a single match. In the Daily division, we had Team 8575 and Team 9293, both of which didn't play in Elims and recorded a record of 3-7. Next up, we have the Newton Division. The Newton Division had 2 PCH teams, Team 4112 and Team 1746. 4112 went 62nd with a record of 2-8 and was not selected for the playoffs. Team 1746 seeded 14th with a record of 6-4 and ended up being the second of the third division, won their division, and then ended up going 1-2 on Einstein with a win over Archimedes and losses against shoot, I forgot who we lost to, but we won a match on Einstein. With that roundup, that's how all the PCH teams in the district went.
Great. Thanks for that recap. That was terrific.
No problem.
Just
Yeah,
like
some really impressive performances.
Yeah, very impressive.
Is that the first win of a PCH team in Einstein?
No, iconically, in 2017, there was a 4188 made it to Einstein Finals where they lost 0-2 to the 973 10-11 Alliance.
Wait.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I do have.
They went.
You just said they lost.
They lost in the finals on.
They lost in the finals, but
that
yeah,
was when they made all the round robins. And
yeah,
they came out as one of the the final 2 alliances, and they
All right.
played in the finals. I watched that match.
yeah. They were on the 118, 16, 78, and then that year 24-15 also won a couple matches on Einstein. 41-12 won a couple matches on Einstein, though they didn't play. 49-10 won 3 matches on Einstein, and 41-88 won 4. So it is notable. Otto is the first, not the first team to win a match on Einstein. They're the first PCH team to be on Einstein, or they're the second team in PCH to be on Einstein as a non-third bot, joining 24-15 as the only teams to join as a alliance captain or second pick.
Or first pick.
First pick, yeah.
First alliance captain or first pick. Sorry.
But yeah, I think if my numbers are right here, I think 7 PCH teams have been to Einstein. Yeah. So
Yeah, we have
1746 this year. 2019 was Ignite for 6829. Then 2017, as Thomas mentioned, for Wired Cats, East Cobb, Egobotics for 4112, and Columbus Space Program all made it in 2017 for a pretty loaded year. And then you have to throw back all the way to 2006.
The Chambly Gear Grinders. Let's go.
1139. So, which is a fun little history fact for you PCH
that was
folks.
the year 1319 was on Einstein. What's that? Is it 2006 or 7?
Yeah, there was a little conversation on the Discord regarding this. So those are the Georgia teams, the ones I had mentioned that had been to Einstein. I believe somebody had mentioned then that if it was
1319
1319
and 343.
It was 343 in 2003, I think, was the yep.
We got 343 in 2000 and 343 won Curie in 2003, and then 1319 won their division in 22. They won Galilean in 07.
07, yes, 07. The one.
Yeah, but say if you go before 2016, there weren't no districts. So if you're going to include Georgia, you're going to have to include South Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes.
So that bumps our number to 8.
Dang right. We're going to put some more up there.
Keep them coming, folks.
Yeah,
the race to be the first PCH World Champion is still up and open.
It's still up for grabs. Who's gonna make it? So one of us.
I will buy your team donuts if you're the first PCH World Champion. You heard that here first. And if there's 2 PCH two PCH teams on the same alliance, the donuts go to the alliance, the person who was picked first, or the alliance captain. I will not be providing multiple teams with donuts. The higher seated person on that alliance would get
one set of donuts with a knife. They cut them in half.
What if they're in one of them's in the northernmost part of South Carolina and the other one's in Albany, Georgia? That's probably not honestly that up far of a drive, but still.
All right.
One team gets donuts.
Uber Eats or something. Have them just delivered.
All right. Any other general thoughts on championships before we move on a little bit?
Let's move on to the game.
Yep.
Yeah. We got some just general thoughts on the charged up season. Changes we saw. Thoughts on Just generally the game. We'll have some conversation coming up next for the PCH season in review. So focus a little bit more just generally on the game.
I think this game, there was no middle. I think you had strong feelings liking areas or hating areas, and there wasn't people on the fence with this one, I think.
We changed sides of the fences. I'll tell you that way. We really hated this game, and then we really liked it.
So the one thing that I really loved about this game was when you saw it towards the end of the season, right? When we got district champs, we clearly saw where you can play triple offense, right? And I love the ability for the 3-bot to play third offense to be effective, because the game that they play going in qualification is the game they play in playoffs. Instead of saying, great, you are doing all the offense, now just go over there and play defense. So I love that part about the game.
Yeah, I think we really saw a transition from districts to then district champs, and then even more visibly at world champs. I think it was very common at the district level for teams to say, all right, because I think we got the very first 4RP match in Georgia at Gwinnett with, I think it was 4509 and IHOT. But we were talking about, all right, who's going to play offense, and picking 2 of the 3 of us to do it, instead of saying, well, all 3 of us will do it and we'll coordinate it. The third one was by default still defense. But yet very visibly then, I think one of the key reasons we won district champs was for having one of the best third robots of the field in 8736 and being able to put up as many game pieces as they could as a third bot and playing offense as well as they could. But yeah, world champs, I can't recall seeing defense. We played some of that opportunistic defense in like being a heat-seeking missile for whenever we were just cycling across the field. If we were going at high speed and we saw somebody in our way, lay a hit on them, maybe we'll drop a game piece. But otherwise, just keep on going as normal. Don't go out of our way for defense. But yeah, the defense, I think, was very much decreased at world champs, just based off of the need to be putting up enough points to keep up with the other alliance. I think David might have some counter experience from that. Well, I don't know if you saw any more defense at world champs just because of the tank drive, or
no. So no, there was no defense played on Galileo to any. Well, there was a little bit. There was a couple of robots that tried to show it, but there was none in the playoffs at all.
Yeah.
We were worried about it, right, as a tank drive, as a liability, but we didn't see any defense.
And I think that's one of the things I most liked about the game, is that it was very much a driver's game. Strategically, I think there was a huge emphasis on knowing where you were going to get your game pieces, and that was like priority number 1 in drivers meetings before matches, is to say, all right, we only get out of the single substation, or we only get out of double substation, or how are we going to coordinate this? I think we had a couple of quals matches where we had alliances that were made up of 3 single substation robots. So that was a pain in trying to do the shuffle through there and in order to figure out how to maximize our alliance output. But otherwise, I really like that it was a driver's game. I think Swerve really emphasized that for just the maneuverability and being able to find the lanes as you could. Trying to precisely place game pieces. It was very much a programmer's game in that sense as well. I know Brian and Ignite did a lot of that refinement on each end, just for picking up game piece really consistently, scoring game piece really consistently. I think we saw some of the coolest programming that there's ever been in PCH coming out of 1771. I never really got to see it up close firsthand, but apparently the driver was really only pushing 2 buttons for either pick up game piece or a score game piece, and that the robot was making all the decisions on its own for recognizing where the game piece was, where the scoring position was. So I think that bodes really well for what we're going to see in the future for teams using that kind of tool more significantly for April tags and things of that nature. So I'm very happy with that implementation this past season.
For me, I really enjoyed the game. I was a bit concerned at the start of the year that the game would devolve into a Auton arms race a la like 2018 or
Yep, right.
2015,
I did too.
because they had the capped scoring of okay at the highest level, and we did see it, and the fear was at the highest level everyone's going to be filling the grid, so the game just becomes okay, how do we max out Auton points? So I think them adding supercharged nodes was a good thing. My one gripe is if you probably had a plan to add it, why didn't you just put that in there to begin with? I, out of policy, don't really like games that have a capped max score unless it's one of those like in 2019 where it's like if you feel where in 2019 where it's there's a cap max score, but each team can adjust their own cap with the null hatch panels. Um, but having a cap score, I just don't, ends up devolving into Auton's arms races, which just aren't great. But that was
I
fun.
think was another cool part of this game is that you could all three robots on your alliance could have multi-game piece Autons. That it was fun to coordinate and figure out who was going to do what. We had very.
We had. I would like to call it the world's, we have, in my humble opinion, the world's dumbest three-piece Auton, but we still have a three-piece Auton.
Right. So
dumbest for a good reason. Yes.
Wait. So Kellen, I'm not sure that. Did I tell you about what we were talking about on Ignite about doing that pushing thing? Is that how you came up with that, or how did you come up with that?
So we had finished. We had gotten through district champs, and we had all through district champs. We had just run a 2-game piece Auton on the bump side, just knowing that that's where other teams are weakest, or that if we're going to play with somebody really good, they'd have the non-bump side covered. But in preparing for Worlds, we're like, all right, how do we add the most value? We already had the 3-cube Auton on non-bump side, but it was all low. But we're like, all right, what's the next thing on the list? And if at all we could do a 3-piece Auton on the bump side, we figured that would be the priority. So I think in a matter of a day, we put together the cube launcher idea inspired by 1102 in that gang. For just being able to be facing the one direction and scoring. But we had mechanically gotten that together and just done some brief testing with it. And then we had sent a squad over to Walton. Again, our season would have been possible, or getting to Einstein was not possible without Walton's DE field. So again, props to those guys.
Also, while I remember, huge shout out to Banks. I think Banks from 2974, Ryan from 1771. I forget the other guy's name. Frank Jarrell's son. I forget your first name, but thank you to you. And then thank you. Yeah, Christopher Jarrell. And then there's the third one whose name I'm forgetting, but is good friends with Chris Jarrell and is the Walton programming mentor, who came in and NASCAR pit crewed and diagnosed our CAN bus errors that we were having in our division finals. Huge shout out to you guys, even though I don't remember your names.
Right. Yeah, that's great part of the support in the district is that I saw that support firsthand, and it was just terrific.
It's Justin from Team 2974. Yeah. Huge shout out to you. Well, I opened the Slack.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about being in a district and getting to know everybody, because I know David and I were talking some stuff mid-season, like ideas back and forth, and when the cube kicker, he's like, "Hey, here's some ideas for us," and we started looking at it. It's so nice to be able to have like the PCH mentors to sort of share ideas, ask questions, and sort of help each other out and have fun at the same time. So yeah, and we had the same idea. Our programmer was like, "Hey, I'm like, what if we put one on our bumper and we pull away and we push it in when we come back with the first one and don't take time placing it?" He's like, "Well, what if we shoot it, right?" And so we had a very similar idea of doing the same thing, which is start outside the bump, shoot it, and that way you don't have to worry about going off and going and never
Yeah,
leave.
yeah. I think we wound up naturally. I wasn't there that day for them coming up with that specific auton. They just kind of got to work with what
Yep.
they had, and just based off of the time they had and how much time we were taking to cross the bump in that one action, they're like, this is the only way it's going to work. And that was the only auton we ran for the entire championship event. Which
So go on, David.
Yeah, I got several thoughts about this game, and I want to get out because we're kind of on that, hopefully still on that topic. I have very mixed feelings about this game, and it changed throughout the season. The very first part of the season, I thought it was very well set up, especially for rookies, because you had all these scoring locations in the low, and you had a simple game piece to score low. You had all these spots to score. Now, of course, teams did not take advantage of that, which we will talk about later in this broadcast. But I thought it was well designed. And of course, the two game pieces gave a tremendous engineering challenge. I couldn't tell from the very first part of the design if people would fill the grid or fill the grid as easily as it turned out. But I thought the game was severely diminished when they added the supercharged nodes.
Yeah,
all strategic stuff just went out the window, and it's just triple offense. I like triple offense, but I like it as an option against two offense and one defender. And so if there's only one way to play the game, and then you're simply coordinating, not hitting each other, which was fun. I enjoyed that coaching aspect where, who's getting game pieces from where, and then where you score, and that was fun to coach. But strategically, it had no depth at all. Because they took out depth of strategy, just gone. So I didn't like that.
All of our pre-match discussions were just, all right, what are we doing to score as many points as we can? And there was very little concern to what they were doing.
Didn't care. And so I would have loved to see the Auton War, right, for that extra point, and then seeing how I could fill my grid up as much as I could while trying to stop you from doing the same thing. That would have actually been a game. And say they took the game away because I guess because they didn't, because that could get ugly.
Right.
It was crisscross traffic and a mosh pit already, which we're going to talk about probably with the reffing and what that set up, what first kind of screwed the refs on. So they just blew the potential of this game out of the water with that one decision. Obviously, swerve was the only option. Which I think is a tragedy to first, unless that's what they really want. That's just a personal thought, right? Yeah. So yes, we're working on swerve modules right now. We've got them assembled. We're going to get this thing up and running this summer, and we'll be coming out with swerve for next year's game as soon as they make an anti-swerve game. But they're forcing teams, if you want to be competitive, to play swerve or just go home. We would not have played in the playoffs at Worlds without just getting a lucky schedule. And that was another weird dynamic of this game. And I guess I can go two ways with that one. So, we were ranked 7th. Actually missed a rank point. We could have been ranked a couple points higher, a couple positions higher. As a tank drive, we were the only tank drive to play in the playoffs. Not only play, but be selected in the playoffs. Everybody else, all of the 31 robots were swerved.
971 also got to play.
But
he's just saying.
Just on your field.
Yeah, my division. Yeah, but 971, if that's your standard for a tank drive in first, so 971 is probably one of the best programming teams there is in all of first. So, but it was clearly a swerve game, and that's what they wanted. Then they made it triple offense. That's what they wanted. I don't understand where they're going with that.
So in terms of you're saying that they wanted a swerve game, these games are made so far in advance. And this game was probably designed pre-COVID and the advent of widely available before the swerve meta.
Right.
Well, the other thing is if swerves were this available off the shelf and you were to go back and replay any of the last 10 or 15 games, all of them, the huge majority of those would be swerve games. But they just weren't because it wasn't as prevalent as it is.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Like the only game that comes to mind is that wouldn't be Swerve would be the 2016. Just
And
'cause
there
we
were
did
two
Swerve.
there though.
Yeah, and then there were teams that still did it.
The swank drive.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough, but I mean, they're not even attempting to.
I know.
Yeah, I
People
do
know-
think it'd
people
be
know what
very
they're doing.
interesting to see in the future, in future years, when I think they've had more time to digest and realize that everybody competitive is doing Swerve. That in order to play the game at a high level, you have to have it. If they start making any decisions based off of that, I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see, but maybe it's just me thinking through the Swerve revolution. And
Yeah,
then,
I think a lot of it has to do with how much easier it is to get a Swerve drive off the shelf now.
And the thing was, it went overnight, right? It wasn't like it started going out a little bit at a time. It was, buy it, you have it. It became, so there are a couple of things. One is Swerve was, the Swerve COTS wasn't as available until the WPI lib came out with all that stuff built into it, right? And so it was, even though you had modules before, you still had to write all the code. And so everything sort of took off this year because it was just easy enough with what was in the WPI lib and what's available in COTS and all the path planning and everything. Even when we were looking at trying to do the Ramset motion profiling after 2019, I had a senior programmer who was trying to figure it out and having fighting with it. And now it's just in WPI lib, right? So all these things that were roadblocks just made Swerve easy this year with the modules being available and the software to support it.
Yeah, fair enough, but it's just, those were probably some of the tightest scoring areas in a while. And so one last comment about the game that I have. I'm sorry, I'm ranting about this game.
Well, I got some negatives too. So
And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but your qualification schedule this year greatly impacted, no matter what your robot skill was, greatly impacted where you ranked. Mm-hmm. We ranked 7th in Galileo. Jack in the Bot ranked 51st. There's no way that happens in a usual game. So I don't know what it was about this specific game. Now it made for interesting alliances, right? Because you had a lot of good robots outside the top 8.
I'd be curious if they consider doing a 2010-esque or a 2015 style, like score based, in addition to win-loss tie record, is that you'd have any kind of, all right, what was the losing score or how hard was your schedule kind of factored?
Well, those are kind of weird things too. I just don't know what it was about this particular game that made it that strength, that luck of the schedule was just so prevalent.
I think the reason that happened is just because the gap has kind of shortened. There still is that gap between the top level, like the best of the best, the 254s, those guys. But the middle ground, the pack that has always just been like just behind them, that gap is shortening. So there's no longer the 29-10s show up and just win every match because they can. The games, it's all the teams can pretty much pull their weight nowadays, especially at Worlds.
This was more a 2014 style game than I think it was than like visually it was. 2014, obviously you had to have all 3 robots touch the ball before you scored it. But there's still a necessity for this game to have 3 alliance partners that can all pull their weight.
Maybe that was the dynamic. So if you just didn't get that on your schedule, you couldn't rank.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be the nature of in my opinion, a well-designed game.
Right. If you look at it, going back to as we just mentioned about, there's a little more parity, right? With all the Swerve drives coming out, the top tier didn't get that much better. The mid tier sort of came closer. And if you look at, the top teams in Auton, right? Because a lot of times you win Auton, you win end game, you're probably going to win the match, right? Mm-hmm. And so 1746 did a 3-game piece Auton. Nobody's doing more than that. They may have scored higher, but there wasn't a huge gap. Where in previous years, if you looked at like 2018, when 254 would do 4 cubes, right?
Mhm.
And everybody else was trying to do 1, maybe 2. And
Yeah, a lot of teams would have 2 on their side, but not be able to have the 2
Right.
on the other side.
And so Ramset being in there has really allowed teams to do some really cool autons that they haven't been able to do before and have the precision that was reserved towards the top teams.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the mid pack has come up quite a bit.
And then another thing, Brian, sorry, David,
Go ahead.
keep going. Another thing that really aided that, prevented that auton difference is it didn't matter where you scored your pieces in auton. You got the same. It wasn't like the points were double.
1 point.
It was just plus 1 point to all the point values. So if you scored 3 high and I scored 3 low and everything else was equal, everything, it was all equal. It didn't matter.
There was still a difference in that it's going to take you longer to score those high pieces in Telly-Up, but the margin is thin enough to be able to make it.
So on a different topic, on things that I did not like about this game, I really did not like where too much of the field was a protected zone, and it forced the crossing paths that we have, where especially at Worlds, it wasn't as much. There wasn't much as far as defense, right? But we saw defense in the districts up until 4 or 5, maybe a little bit of 6, right? And having those crisscrossing paths where you have a game where the only way I score more points is by driving faster, and I'm going to have bots crisscrossing back and forth. You hit somebody's going to tip over at those velocities, especially when the game design requires you to reach 4 feet outside your frame perimeter and have a small drivetrain so you can fit 3 on the platform. I just did not like that. And overall, there's a lot of stuff I like about WPI Lib and Swerve. I like the triple offense. But I just thought this game was too much of just a kill zone in the center where if you weren't careful, you bump somebody, they're tipping over and you're getting a red card.
Yeah, I think people were a bit too happy with the red cards this year. I know we're going to get into this in the future, but I'd hope first would provide some training and guidance on that. Okay, if a team goes out of their way and is doing something that's everyone in the stands can go, that's malicious, red card. But if it's, I think Corsetto said it after they got red carded in week 1, it's 2 robots are hitting and 1 robot they designed their robot to be way up here so they fall.
Yep.
And it's you're being punished for another team's poor design choices,
right?
Which
now,
I don't think is fair.
To be clear, the rules did not change. It's just this game, with the way you traveled and the velocities you traveled and the designs you had, allowed everybody to see what the rules have always been.
Yeah.
Right. So this is not, they're calling it differently. They're calling it wrong. It's the way it's supposed to be called. And this
it's just being called more routinely.
Right. This game was poor because of that.
Yeah, I will say that for many of our interactions with the refs throughout the season, for any tipping calls or anything close to tipping calls, the refs were pretty on top of it. I think there are situations where you're going to be, you might have that margin of error where people just weren't looking. We had some of that with like inside the frame perimeter damage, that the referees weren't looking, so we were just out of luck. But on the tipping and contact, I think the referees did a good job on that. I think there were some pretty impactful ones that could have gone either way based on review. But yeah, I think it is an interesting situation in that it's just was so much more prevalent this season.
Right. And that's because of the game design, right? That's not because of the rules. It's because of the game design.
Well, and you had this like same crossing patterns in like 2017, but all the robots were like 2 feet tall that year.
2 feet tall, and there were lots of paths to go around. We would see congestion in the middle. We go around the
Airship.
airship, right? So you could go 2 ways around. There was no 2 ways around. You had to come out, and there's one spot you had to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And that one spot was right next to the other alliance's one spot coming out.
Yep.
So that's I'm not the biggest fan of the game because of what that did.
Mm-hmm. Well, some ups, some downs in my track record. I think generally when you're talking to people, it's their thoughts on games are very, very specifically in relation to how well their robot did that given year, just for how much they liked or didn't like a game. But I think this game had some good elements and some elements that could use some work. But it'll be interesting to see what future games look like. We shall see. But with that said, I think we'll shift over to some more specific PCH season review. What did we see in PCH this season?
I think this was probably the best PCH season I've experienced, and I've been around for all of them. I think District Champs was the best PCH event ever, period. Hands down, no discussion. If you disagree with me, you're wrong. I think this season, with the amount of just teams that not only could compete at the world level, but did. I mean, 1102 knocked off the alliance pairing that everybody, and I mean everybody, thought was just going to mollywop and just win worlds. They beat them. We had 2974 playing in elims, 1683 getting picked in elims, 1414 making it to finals, us making it to Einstein, and then also having that same level of play at home. I think, as a district, every season has been just one step moving up and up and up and up. And I think, I'm excited to see where the district is 2 or 3 years from now, because I think if we continue as a district growing at the rate we are, we'll become a district that a lot of people point to and go, that's why the district model needs to exist.
Yeah.
I will give a huge shout out to South Carolina. What an awesome addition this past season. I think it was much more evident at district champs based off the amount of teams actually playing with and against each other. I think we only had really the couple teams hot borders for competing in South Carolina or in Georgia. But yeah, district champs was just an incredible showing for both Georgia and South Carolina teams. But it was really cool to see. I think the MCs had the crowd go in for South Carolina teams cheering and Georgia teams cheering. I will admit, you kicked us in the seat of the pants when it came to I don't know which team it was for South Carolina, but South Carolina, I think, took us to town on all those Georgia South Carolina chants. So.
And South Carolina had 4 of the 6 teams in district finals. So
but yeah. The robot performance was all the more incredible to watch for that district championship event. We were thrilled to be playing with 281 for Alliance captains. Playing against the all South Carolina team in finals. But yeah, the quality of robots this season, like Thomas said, I think I'm fully in agreement that this is the best PCH. That was specifically the best PCH event ever. That I can recall.
Yeah, some firsts, right? Techno Titans' first blue banner. They got one finally in the district, and so Howard, yes, next year you're gonna have to do it again, right? You got talking about your team.
What you don't want, you got to do it again,
right? And Lanier, Mechanical Bulls, going into Alliance selection, they had a great year. Right, teams in Georgia are getting a lot better, and I know that I'm pretty sure Mechanical Bulls was spending a lot of time at the Gwinnett field for the school system, and then I know Techno Titans was going over to Walton. Thanks again, Walton. It wasn't for the DE there. we would not have been do as good as we did. I actually think with what we saw this past year with all the teams sort of stepping up, I think we might need some more DEs around Atlanta, because I'm not sure we're going to have enough space, because as these teams start inching up a little bit more and more, they're gonna want to have that time at that field and get even better.
Yeah, and having gone to Walton's DE field a lot this season, that thing was packed to the brim every single time. People were jockeying to get signed up as soon as they could, or to ask teams that were signed up of, hey, are you actually going to use that slot? Can we use it instead? I know there's more efforts. There's the field permit over at the Alliance Academy. That there's, I think, some more momentum to get that back up and running. So I think that's the exact type of thing that's going to keep elevating that PCH game.
Yeah,
by getting those resources more and more available to teams.
Yeah, the nice thing about the Walton field is a full field. I know a lot of the other ones they'd have a half with a station on the other side, and so getting a full field all over the place allows just more teams to be doing things.
And obviously Walton's like one of the best organized teams in the state, but if you're at all associated with any of those other DE fields and have any interest in using them, reach out to the teams that put them on and say, hey, we can send some volunteers, hey, we can send some wood, but get them set up properly at the beginning of the year and you'll reap all the rewards.
Yeah. Have we moved along to gripes yet, or are we still talking about the good stuff?
We're talking about PCH in general. I guess from South Carolina's perspective, obviously our first year, a lot of growing pains trying to figure out the volunteer base and all that kind of fun stuff to support two small events that we had. Thought we came out pretty well. I thought it was very, very beneficial for the South Carolina teams. We had a lot more interaction than we have in the past, where at Palmetto we might have had 30 teams out of 65 at the event, and so South Carolina could even get lost in the shuffle at their own event. So at this event, it was a lot more interaction. And I'd like to see, going into next year, I'd like to see if we can somehow encourage border crossing during the district events.
So I was just thinking about that. There are a lot of events that were around the 24 to 26 team mark, which made really rough as far as the line selection, as far as faster turnaround times. If we don't see the team growth, and here's the rub, right? We won't know team growth until near the end of the year, but they're solidifying events right now as we speak, right? They got a few months to nail things down. I would almost say if you don't expect the growth, I would almost take away one of the Georgia events and grow the other events deeper, and then also for some cross-pollination.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Hopefully we can get the growth, but either way, yeah, you're right. To get team count above 30 would be good. I did hear a couple of, I won't call it complaints, but like stress to some of the South Carolina teams around the fast turnarounds at a district event with it being so small, and the stress that caused them that they didn't have a more relaxed pace.
Yeah.
That was a huge change to district champs and world champs to be able to have an hour between matches. That was just a crazy feeling to be, instead of getting out and immediately getting back in queue in a different color bumper and having to change battery. And it's just.
And in 2022, when we went to Albany, they had and Columbus I think it was Columbus. They had like a 2016 thing, and it was really, really fast turnaround times. But when you get to the mid, 32 to 33, that slows down. And so it's very, very noticeable just getting just a couple more teams out to the events. And I'm not sure we're going to get, 40 more teams to join to get everybody up to 30, but if we just drop it down one and get everybody to 30, I think would be a better experience.
Yeah, good idea.
Ignoring the travel part. All right. I just want two close ones near to me, right?
Yeah.
You all can travel. Come on over.
No, no, you want to play close and let us travel? Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, see, I'm gracious that way.
We were here first, David.
You can go on vacation.
I disagree. Palmetto Regional Georgia exists us, and South Carolina got the first Peachtree Regional started. But other than that, yes, you were first. So, so anyway, Thomas, you said you wanted to have some, you call it gripes, maybe room for improvement. Are you talking about PCH or?
Yeah, PCH specifically.
Okay, all right.
Constructive criticism is probably the best way to put it.
No, constructive feedback.
Constructive feedback.
We're not trying to criticize. We are trying to help improve.
Yeah,
That means
okay.
identifying an issue and helping them get better, not just complaining.
One thing I think Georgia First should do a better job at is how they allocate practice field slots for the elims teams. It is, especially in this game where teams are trying to coordinate a triple balance, it is such a big competitive advantage for alliances to get practice field time. For there to be events where not all 8 teams got practice field slots, I think is a bit absurd. Yeah. And on top of that, I definitely think that you should have it, to facilitate that, it should be a defined, during lunch, right? Alliance selection happens, and then there's a lunch break. It's okay. For the first 15 minutes, the first seed goes. And then the next 15 minutes, the second seed goes. And then you just run through those up until it's done. And you adjust the time based on how much time is between the end of alliance selection and the beginning of elims. So it's, if there's 60 minutes, if there's an hour, you divide an hour by 8, and then each team gets that amount of time. So it helps incentivize quick alliance selection, so everybody gets more time on the practice field, and on top of that, everyone gets at least some practice time.
Yeah, there were events we were at where I know some teams came up as an alliance, and it was already gone. Right, I knew that when we would get there on day 2, I'm like, get a time in the afternoon, just so that we go to the playoffs, we have a time to go. If you wait, you might not get it. So I think having a predefined schedule, maybe you RNG who's where, doesn't make a difference. But I think there should be reserve slots so that somehow each alliance has a time to go, so that way everybody has the same experience.
That's right. I'm not entirely sure. So obviously this season the charging platform was the crucial deal there, and you only have one of those on the practice field. But I'd be curious of what any thoughts or feedback would be on using the actual field, just for having all the elements at both ends. Obviously, that you'd be able to have 2 alliances on the field at a time over lunch, just to say, all right, you've got your time slot. Go out there and use it for your 10 minutes. That you can crunch that in as little as 40 minutes.
All the volunteers at lunch, including the FTAA, they
right.
break.
So this sort of dovetails into the other thing I'd like to see as an improvement, and this is not a Georgia First thing. This is a first thing that Georgia First and South Carolina First followed, which is the practice field elements did not have April tags, and that's how they sort of came. And they're set up in a way such that you have all these field elements really close together. And if you put April tags on them, you're going to get conflicting April tags that in software puts you in an illegal spot, right? Because I can't be 5 feet away from this one and 5 feet away from this one when they're 10 feet apart, right? And so I think First has to figure out, how do you put together a practice field with April tags, because there were a handful of teams that were using April tags to do a lot of stuff, and that's only going to increase. And right now, when we were trying to practice our human player intake, we could not practice that, right? We had to happen to bring our own April tags. We had to mount it up there and sort of make sure it was off to the side and try to simulate some stuff. It wasn't already on the system, all right, all in the practice field. So when they add the April tags, then you're going to have conflicting April tags. So they're going to have software that says, here's the set configuration for, the localization for a practice field, or spread it out. I think it's something they have to solve, because if you don't, and you put some teams that use April tags on the practice field and other teams that don't on the regular field, the teams on the regular field can see the April tags and they're going to get a larger benefit. So I'm okay
I'm
with
saying all alliances get actual field time. You just have 4 slots, two alliances at a time, and you have 2 sets of the elements. But yeah, I think the biggest thing there, as I think David mentioned, is just having somebody there making sure that the field's not getting ripped apart, which I think teams are already doing.
But if you
it's just one more opportunity to do so.
But if you do that, and that solves eliminations, right? It doesn't solve the problem for teams during qualifications, right?
Oh, I fully agree that, especially your point we're only going to see an increase in the use of April tags and hopefully there are more April tags around the field, just to be able to always have 1 or 2 in the field of view. Right. But yeah, more accurately putting those on the actual field. And this is the same case for increasing the amount of DE fields, is giving teams more access to as realistic as possible field environment. And this is only going to help PCH teams compete at the world level.
Correct. So let's go back to a few things about this whole district system, of which PCH is a subset, right? So the district system does not require 10 by 10 pits, doesn't require practice, doesn't require practice elements, because they're trying to maybe use a high school gymnasium and just jam some stuff in there, go play some matches, have fun, and leave. I don't think that's the quality of event that we want to have in the Peachtree District. So we are already, to some extent, above the minimum standard, right? So what you're talking about is, what is the standard then that we want to have, which then limits your venue selection a bit to do a few things. Like, if you want practice matches, you have to be able to get in the venue fast enough to set it up, so by the time the team shows up, the field is put together. So there's a lot of little things that go on, and the venue's big enough to have 10 by 10 pits, and the venue is big enough to have a decent sized practice area. So that does limit our venue selection a little bit. I'll just say that I don't necessarily want to have a race to the bottom. So we're already above it. I think we just need to talk about, how do we want to fund these venues that we would need to do what we're describing. I know we can reuse some of the field, right? Maybe that's an option, for playoff practice, but not practice. But it does limit your selection of which venues you can pick.
I think there are a lot of easy improvements you can make that don't require either bigger venue. I think there were some issues for the Lake Point venue at Emerson. I know there were some issues with lighting, just to be able to kind of re-coordinate and get lighting such that it was properly lighting up the April tags on the actual field. But like for the practice field elements, I think one improvement that could be made there, and I know there are going to be teams there that have those elements as their like high priority. Like, I want those elements there. I know there's the FTAs that have any responsibility for making sure those elements are functionally as realistic as possible. Just that teams aren't using a practice element and going to the actual field and saying, well, this didn't work and I tried it over there. But just that they're actually realistic enough just to be held to a certain standard. But I think that's where you can lead.
Yeah, district champ venue selection, right, is different than district event selection, or venue selection, right? So what I was talking about was not necessarily the champs, which I think should be of a regional quality, right? Good practice area, good lighting, good everything, right? good seating.
Mhm.
But these high school gyms or whatever we're having the district events in, some of those are just space restricted to have everything that we possibly want to have, unless we want to say we want to be above the standard and make sure that when you select a venue for a district event, you have room to get this done.
Well, I think another important part there is to get team feedback on what they actually want to be using the practice field elements for. And obviously every team has their kind of own direction, and first has their direction on like, all right, here's the basic first practice field setup. But like at district champs this year, the priority so much becomes that Auton arms race that you have to have then enough space to run like a 3-game piece Auton and have it marked out. But I think that's where you can more so lean on teams that are attending to say, like, if you want these things, you gotta chip in and help for either bringing any element or marking out or using the space that is available to make it as valuable as possible for teams. And I think the teams at that, either the top end or even anybody using those elements is going to put some effort into saying, this is how we want to use them, but this should also be the most useful for other teams at this event to get the most use out of it.
Right. So just as a side note, we were at what's it, Lakewood, up by Cartersville for district champs. We were there in 2019. There were 6 more teams there this time compared to last time, and there was a full field as a practice field. Columbus brought their field up, right? And there was plenty of room in that setup to do 6 more teams, right? That would be a great thing to have for a district championship, right? Sort of like showcase, give everybody a chance to do what they want. I think at a qualifier, you have to sort of pare down the expectations, right? I think making sure you have all the April tags and making sure you have a little more room. People are still a lot of teams are still trying to crawl before walk before they run. And so just having, at Gwinnett, there was plenty of space, right? You could move this a little bit as a great venue for a lot of reasons. What didn't like the walking outside, but outside of that, it was a real nice venue. And so being able to have the April tags there, and so I'm working on this one here, so I'm gonna cover. If you don't need it, cover yours, and sort of do those kind of things. That's kind of what I see as a minimum, is keeping what we have now, but getting April tags on there, because I know we were doing it. I know 1771 was doing it. 2974 was doing it. Techno Titans going into district champs was starting to use April tags, right? So that's where this is at. Next year, we're going to have more. We need to have those April tags set up and maybe a little more spacing between the elements.
Yep. Yeah, so I entirely agree with that. And I think the careful thing to remember while pushing on that front is to make sure that the teams just starting to get to increase the pace at which they're competing are also well taken care of for the basic use of the elements, rather than like, oh, we don't care about April tags. Just give us the thing or some carpet to drive on.
Yeah.
Just plain carpet is very useful in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Anything else about PCH? I guess one just kind of off the cuff comment is I'd like to get more communication in the Slack groups. The people that communicate, but there's a lot of the community that's not out there still. We can encourage that kind of participation in Slack. I think that would help us as a district entirely to ask for help. Ask.
Yeah.
We had some, I think, awesome advances for roping in South Carolina group into our PCH Slack. I know South Carolina's got its own Slack still going, which is awesome. But we did get the awesome kind of reach out by the South Carolina group to be able to get that Slack upgraded to the nonprofit plan, so we can now go back and look at messages more than 90 days old,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever the cutoff
You're
is.
welcome.
So it makes the resource that much more valuable to go in and look back at discussions and resources that have been posted from prior years. But yeah, like David's saying, if you know mentors that aren't in there, post and ask in the mentor roundtable for getting people added. We just need their email address, and we'll get them added.
May need to put that out in the Peach Press stuff and sort of say, hey, join here, right? And that way it goes to all the teams. One thing that I saw that what I saw as an issue at District Champs, and that was the ability to scout. You have 51 teams. If we want faster alliance selection, then we need to support scouting. And that means you should expect 5 or 6 scouts per team. That's 300 scouts. If they want to scout, they need to sit in the prime spot to watch that match, which means there's spectators do not get a chance really. They have to sort of sit on the side. And one of the ideas that I had, I mentioned this to Kyle, was, could you have a screen over off to the side where scouts can go sit, and this is at District Champs, not qualifiers, but at District Champs, have a spots where your scouts can go sit, and they actually have a nice full field view. And what I saw at Worlds, where they basically had a split screen, which is facing each scoring thing, so you could see where they were scoring, right? And you can see, so it was basically, you weren't seeing just the scoring stuff, but you're angled to see the field from that direction. And almost every game, like in 2019, it was impossible to score half the matches because you couldn't see the far side on what was over there. So if you had 2 cameras on that game, pointing each direction, you could see that. Get the scouts off to the side and let all the people that want to watch, the people who are trying to get engaged in this game, to be able to come and see.
And that's something we saw at Worlds. Is at Worlds they had, I know Worlds is a whole different beast, but they just had wall of TVs where a lot of people would just congregate, watch matches, and depart. So I don't see at a point where Emerson why we can't just park a TV and it doesn't need to be.
Well, it needs more than a TV, right? Because
Yeah.
you want 30 people to read, right? So if you had the overhead screen like you have behind the referees, if you had something like that off to the side, and don't go watch a match there, go scout over there. Let all the teams that want to cheer raw and all the excitement, let them sit right in front. Let them cheer and scream without having to worry about I'm scoring here. I can't yet be enthusiastic, kind of thing.
And then having to worry about the person in front of me is up in the air and I'm trying to hurriedly scribble down.
Right.
It also really depends on the game too. For like scouting this year was crucial to be able to see the right in front of the driver's station. So if you were off at if this was the playing field and you were sitting over here, you could not scout this alliance because you couldn't see if they actually scored the game piece on that grid. So you'd have to. I think we had a lot of occasions where we had to go back and kind of watch. And again, props to Georgia First and PCH on getting matches and their video uploaded onto the Blue Lines, but being able to go on there and watch a match that same night to fill in any of the scouting gaps is really helpful. But being able to have that data and our scouts be able to see and have good views, I think what Brian mentioned is a great idea, to be able to have a big screen off to the side specifically dedicated for scouts.
The other thing to improve alliance selection, and this is something that Ignite gave to Kyle, to some of the teams that were near the top, did not have. Like a lot of the rookie teams were ranked really high. They were smaller teams, experience in doing scouting and everything. And we gave basically all the scoring data, right? Basically what I could refer to as the Blue Alliance data, all the qualitative or quantitative data, right? And I think if we have something like that happen at all the events, where at the end of the match, at the end of day one, here's all the the quantitative data. They scored X, Y, Z, right? That would be great. So that means teams that are properly scouting need to be able to provide a list of not the secret sauce, right? But the raw data of how many they score, high, medium, low, that kind of stuff, to the to the head referee or whoever, Kyle, whatever it was, such that those teams that don't have scouting can have that data and they can start looking at it. And then same thing and once it's over with, give them a refresh. That way they have something they can use. Also, give them the spreadsheets and the Statbotics thing too, right? If we support them that way, they can make better picks, faster picks.
Yep. All right, we're back. Sorry if there's a splice. We had to change over the recordings, but we should be back. If there's any noticeable changes in audio and or video quality, we're sorry, but it is what it is.
Thomas is to blame.
Yeah, I am quite I am quite literally to blame. Our producer Ian had to hop off, so now I am the producer and I'm in control.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
We're just-
oh no.
We're
Let's
just
get
long-winded.
on the road. All right.
Yeah.
Next topic.
Next topic.
Let's see. We're jumping then in. So we got some PCH review in there. I think if it's something I think we can go on and on about. But next, something we've touched on a little bit here and there are this is just general conversation about either potential or actual changes happening in first, or changes we might like to see, or just general conversation around improvements that might contribute towards improvements in team experience, or just the general quality of the first experience for new teams, veteran teams, things of that nature.
For this game's perspective, in terms of stuff being misscored, I think that they were just the policy around resetting the field was just way too fast. Of, hey, we think you misscored the grid, but the field's reset, people have already taken all the stuff off the grid. I think if it's a pick and place game, like this year or 2019, 2019 is a bit different because the teardown was a bit more complex, but it doesn't take that long to just get a bunch of stuff off the field, just to leave the scored items scored until the final decision is made on a match. Because I know there were some instances where for us on Einstein, we're like, hey, we think like this little thing was misscored, and it's like, well, we've already put all the stuff away, we're sorry.
There's a tension there to keep the event moving, and right. So how do you do it? Like I said, there are consequences to these decisions to slow things down.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me ask this strange one. What if at the end of the game there's basically a photo taking of all and this is only in manual scoring games, right? A photo taking of the field off to the side, because the game result was the game result, regardless of what they may have put up there, right? The result is what's on the field. And could you then, like within 2 matches, go and rescore that? Only obvious scoring errors, right?
Yeah.
And then adjust it and say they now won, and then everybody adjust it after the fact, because that's what the result was. You're not changing the result. You're just correcting error in the scoring.
Yeah, I think that, for me, I think first needs to do a better job of correcting errors. There was, the entire debacle last year at state champs with the ball that was scored like 15 times, of just recognizing, especially in this year's game, of there was just blatant, or this person's thing is touching they're touching carpet, but they're still on it and stuff like that. I think
all right, so I get a lot more. First off, in 2022 there was electronic scoring. I'm gonna count electronic scoring, right? Because that was an edge case there where it was
it was a weird sensor that happened,
right? But anytime it's a pick and place and they can't do electronic scoring, there have been especially in this one, there's a lot to score, a lot of game pieces. There have been errors, right? And again, I don't want to slow down the game. I don't want to slow down the matches, right? And you could say the photos off, and if you think you can go back and look at it and say, nope, it's again, clear, definitive stuff. And David's gonna be like, Brian, you're crazy. Stop talking.
And then
I see that look.
Well, I mean, it's
one idea I'd have.
It's really simple. We want better calls where solutions for them. Those solutions will have consequences. Let's take it out for a test spin. Let's put something out there. Okay. Yeah, because you could debate this thing for eons and not come up with anything better until you try.
And then one idea I'd have, and it works specifically for quals, doesn't necessarily work in elims, is we don't necessarily need to know the match. I don't need to know who won quals match 3 at the end of quals match 3. If it's going to take a bit longer to get a match, take those still images, right? But then still keep the ball rolling. Can be an option to keep stuff going.
Yeah.
Of just taking snapshot. Okay, here's our end of match scenario. Here are the things that we need to talk about. Are we able to post immediately? If yes, post immediately. If no, okay, let's do this thing. Yeah. Let's figure out what we need to figure out, but let's keep the ball rolling and keep matches cycling through. And then when it's time, if there's an issue, instead of it being, there's an issue in quals match 3, we need to sit here and delay the entire event by 20 minutes.
And the problem is, especially this year, Drive Team had the worst view to figure out if their stuff was scored properly or not, right?
Yeah.
And the Drive Team is the one has to make the go to the question box to say, hey, we got another one, right? Typically, I know in 2016, right, the Sallyport door teams would go through and they'd spin, and week 1 and 2 referees didn't see that. They caught on to what was happening, and the rest of the season was there. But there were still, and maybe there weren't as much, but I know there were still scoring years mid-season going on.
The solution to that is no manual scoring. But again, that has consequences.
But that eliminates pick and place games.
But
that doesn't.
No. But it's just every solution we come up with has consequences. That I think first needs to recognize that the consumer is expecting review and validation. That's really what it comes down to. The consumer.
Yeah, what I think is the most disappointing is being respected as a science, technology, engineering competition, but to then whiff on such visibly obvious errors.
Well, right, you had the weighted frisbee scoring in 2013, and you had to take them out and count. And so you're waiting for the results, which really kills the mood. You don't want to wait for a result. You want to know, the basketball 3, 2, 1. He shot it. It went in. Woo! They win. So that's what you want is excitement, not precision by using pictures. That'd be horrible. To fix the game, don't be
right. Well, and that's why I like a lot of the shooting games, because recently the shooting games have all had electronic scoring, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Pick a place that has it, but I don't want to again solve it.
2018
I don't want it
had
to
automated scoring, and that was pick and place.
Yeah, it was.
You'd need RFID chips or something like that on
Whatever.
game pieces.
There are solutions to this problem. You want results at the end of the match. You want them to be accurate. You want review, because that's the expectation of the modern consumer. Period.
Yeah. I think it's good to hold.
Right.
good to hold ourselves to a high standard. Good to hold the event the first to a high standard. But right. I think the general concept is identifying a list of improvements to be made and find ways to start test driving those things to see, well, can we actually find a way to improve this? What I can say is really encouraging. I think under the leadership of Colin Foltz, I think we've seen some, and they're not all coming to mind immediately. I think we'll talk about one here in a bit for some upcoming improvements, but that there seems to be effort towards some positive change, or some of the change that's the kind of the low hanging fruit to say, all right, yeah, we can make that change. Let's go ahead and find a better solution for that, instead of just saying, oh, well, that's the way it's always been. Deal with it.
Yeah, I really love the timeout rule change they made, right? Where they're like,
timeout, the whole elimination or playoffs this year is terrific.
Playoffs are epic again. They've made playoffs epic again.
So we don't want to lose momentum that provided by throwing weird barriers for accuracy that doesn't change the outcome.
Right.
So we need to be reasonable as consumers as well.
But
and don't change too many things at the same time.
But the nice thing is that timeout rule change, or elimination of timeouts, right? Started as a conversation on Chief Delphi, right? They heard that and they took it seriously. They got a group of First HQ and select mentors in the community and looked at that, right? Because it's like, timeouts, I can't make it there. Eliminations, I can't get on the field. It's a bad experience for me. And they made it better by doing double elimination, which I think was really great, and getting a lot of the timeout rules. So hopefully we could make some edge case minor tweaks, not wholesale rebuilds, but what can we do to improve?
Yeah, and I think that's what we've been covering here. Again, it's just general conversations about what we as a Peach Pit crew think are some of those possibilities on things that could be investigated next as possibilities, which again are really reflective of our feelings against this game. Obviously, those things change drastically when taken in consideration to next year's game. So it's important to not overreact to these things, but it's also important to take them into consideration. But with that said, something that really heavily relates to how those rules are called during gameplay is how teams are interacting with referees
and volunteers.
And volunteers for either the referees as people that are volunteering their time. You also have then all the other volunteers behind the scenes for either the practice field folks, the pit folks, anybody and everything. Is understanding that those people there for providing the teams with a positive experience, and it's important to make sure that entering into any interaction with those people, the benefit of the doubt needs to be given to say that both people are in the situation to provide the best experience, the best outcome possible for the teams in that situation, and to enter that conversation with, and the word we've tagged, I think, before the show was civility. And again, understanding that those volunteers are people, they're volunteering their time, that you need to enter into that interaction saying, I very well might be wrong in this situation. I don't have all the information. What I can do is present my case, what I saw, and I can hear what the referee saw from their end, if they had a better view, or if they did not have enough of a view to make the call that I want them to make. To come to that understanding with civility, I think says a lot about how a team carries themselves, or how their students are trained to carry themselves in those situations, to not have a hot head and in approaching those conversations. Because again, I think the benefit of that has to be given to the event volunteers, everybody trying to provide the best experience possible. So yeah, remembering that gracious professionalism can be very difficult in the heat of the moment. Obviously, a one win or one loss can make the whole difference on a season for either qualifying for the next event but yeah, being able to carry yourself with that civility, I think says a lot more about you as a person or you as a team, to that it really is the bigger thing that pays off more in the long run than how one match is going to affect your team season. Obviously, it can be pretty significant, but being good people through the process is is obviously the most important thing there. And again, trying to pursue a situation in which everybody can have that civil conversation and walk away as happy as possible, even if the call isn't flipped in your direction or you don't get what you want. At least you come to an understanding and figure out how to proceed as best as possible from there. But any other thoughts on that gracious professionalism note?
So I want to sort of add on to that. I had talked to a referee last season. There were a lot of raw emotions with all the the red cards and tipping and stuff. It seemed like the game caused a lot more people to get a little less civil, right, and react in ways that really don't live up to what Woody Flowers talked about was gracious professionalism. But one of the comments that was made to me from the referee was they actually saw this last year too. So even though there may be game changes or game design things causing some more red cards, coming out of COVID, it seems like discourse is sort of broken down a little bit and civility is sort of broken down a little bit. We have a bunch of rookies on our teams that haven't been through a real season before. Parents have not been on the team to see what's going on. There was a team, we had a parent one time on a team that something was going wrong on the field, and they're like, "That's wrong. You can't do that. They're cheating." And I'm pulling them off to the side saying, "We don't know what's going on down there, right?" And I help walk them through that, right? And so us as mentors need to make sure we talk to our students and to our parents and talk about, yes, we want to win, right? And we will not know everything we're going to from the stands, what's going on down there, but let's give the volunteers and the referees always the benefit of the doubt instead of being very antagonistic against them. Let's try to go back to before COVID when things seem to be more civil and people had better conversations. So I think that's not relied on First or Georgia First. I think it's us as mentors of the team to make sure we show them what our values are and we keep them there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Brian. We, probably lost a big chunk of the community. We lost some teams. We had a lot of turnover, a lot of gap. So it is incumbent upon us, or me as an old guy, to make sure we educate our people on the expectations and the ethos of First around gracious professionalism. And I've done things that I'm not proud of, and I've tried to correct those errors, and I've explained that to my team. And so we need to hold, ourselves accountable and explain these situations to these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen some situations where you'll see a volunteer or something reference to talk to any student on your team. Oh, your team's been around for a while. You should know better. I think,
I've been here like 3 months.
But I think there's some inherent issue there, and it's just a forever ongoing challenge to continuously be educating your team on these things. It's not a one and done thing. It's part of a team's culture and should reflect itself through your team's participation. But yeah, for parents that are brand new to the to First going to an event, we've had that before, for teams yelling and like either chewing out the other alliance or things of that sort. But yeah, that it's an ongoing struggle and it's an ongoing educational process. But I think there have been some situations with those volunteers that there's just an assumption that because you're on a team that's 15 years old, that you should know better. That there's an awareness there that it's also an ongoing struggle, because you've got student turnover every 4 years, you've got mentor turnover, you've got team leadership, you've got all those things are changing constantly. So to imagine a team should know better just because they're an old team. I mean, as a volunteer, if any of you all are listening, all I can recommend is help be part of that education process as much as you can, for teaching students about gracious professionalism, how to be best interact in those situations. And obviously, we as mentors will do the best we can to prepare our teams and our students and our team members to interact with you at events, just to, again, make this experience as best we can for everybody involved. So, yeah, thanks, Brian, for making that a point to get on our conversation schedule.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yep. If we lose that, we lose the fun.
Yeah,
Yep.
we do.
Yeah.
We lose a lot of the core. I mean, that's just the basic core value of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about time to wrap up. Just to end it, if we could have some. Well,
so what I'd like to do, I'd have some thoughts on this. What's something people or each of us are doing either this off season or some in preparation for either the coming season or just some neat project we're working on, first related or non-first
well,
related.
Kellen, if you'd let me finish what I was about to say, I was about to say the same thing. And on
Well,
top of
I was
that,
concerned you were going to wrap things up way too early.
It sounded to me
No.
like you're saying goodbye.
No, I was saying before we wrap this up, to get us towards wrapping us up, I will delete the recording if you keep testing me, Brian.
That's not going to stop.
Is on top of what Kellen did, a favorite moment or memory from this recent season. I think would be a good thing to add, since I was so rudely interrupted.
Sorry, producer Thomas. I apologize. Don't hold it against me.
Okay, off season. Obviously, our team is building a swerve. We've got the modules put together. This week we'll assemble the chassis and then wire it, and then we've got the code ready to load into it and see what happens.
Are you guys going to try and have a swerve bot at Grits or in an off season this year, or are you just playing
that's
by
the
ear?
goal. Is we have a scrap coming up in July, which will take our old robot and play with it in July, and then the off season in the fall we'll be bringing a swerve drive base with a cube only scorer on it.
That's
Because
cool.
the goal is to figure out swerve, not to figure. I know we can score cone, but it's just grab a cube, throw it low, get another one, throw it low.
Yep. I guess I'll go next. And what was your favorite moment of the year?
Favorite moment of the year. We won 2 district events with people that had not played in the playoffs, and then of course never had won. So our second picks at both events got their first playoff experience and their first win. Absolutely rock solid, beyond the coolest part of the event, part of the year.
Alrighty. I'll go next. This off season and next season, I'll be taking a step back from first, and I'll be pursuing my master's degree in math education with the hopes of being hired as a math teacher for the start of the 2024-2025 school season. So that's where I'll be. I'm still going to try and make it to some events, but with how I'll be incredibly busy. So I'll try to make it out to a couple events, say hello, and still do this podcast, hopefully. But on top of that, my favorite event moment from the year, it's kind of an obvious one, but it was just before I got to have a discussion with our drive team right before finals match 3 on the Newton field. That was a cool one where just, talking to them, the nerves were all rattled, and just talking to them is like, hey, we're here because we deserve to be here. Let's go out and let's go have fun. And then
Cool.
All of a sudden, everything that came next was just bonus.
Bonus dias.
Mm-hmm.
Your turn, Brian.
So I have a lot to pick from. So I'm gonna go not our blue banner at Macon. And it's sort of like one of the reasons why we all sort of did this. Our driver this year came in, and he's a senior, so he's graduated. but he came in and you would not expect him to have a personality of a driver, right? He came in and he tried out, did phenomenal. He drove great, and I'll drive like Emily, right? And this year, he just nailed it out of the park. And I'm just really impressed to see that kind of like give somebody a chance to just be a little different, and you could be really impressed by what they do. Our driver. On a side note, I'm gonna backtrack just a teeny bit. That every bot thing would be great for veteran teams to buy for the rookies to work on, or to have a second bot to play. Off season. So we went to the Gwinnett Pride. So we've been working on our social outreach robot. We learned it was a little more fragile than we wanted to, so we just redesigned on our outreach bot, maybe a little more. And I've been away the past few weeks doing some other things, but there was some fun projects to do for the team. So that's kind of where we sit.
Cool.
Gotcha. All right. My, I think, best memory from the season is all the things that had to go right. Oh yeah. In order for us to pull off somehow, just by the skin of our teeth, winning the district champs, because we had to outright in order to qualify for Worlds. So that then just qualifying for Houston was a big win, and then somehow we make it all the way to Newton or to Einstein. It's just the amount of decisions that had to be made correctly between realizing that we had a bad robot and only having a week and a half until our next event, and only 3 days between that and the next event. We've done rebuilds in the past, but this was
the most successful one to boot.
So just in hindsight, looking at the amount of decisions that had to nail each and every one of them, for either working on an autonomous mode and only one of them, that it was just too cool to see. And we have some of our newer mentors then really embracing any set of golden rules to really design around or to build around, that I think is going to be really valuable for the team. The kind of really fundamental rules we should be following in how we design and build robots, so we don't get in these issues that caused us to spend 8 or 9 weeks building a robot that wasn't going to be good enough to qualify for Houston. So that was what I most enjoyed seeing out of this past season, and hopefully it's something the team does really well for years to come. As for this off season, you got something, Thomas?
I just wanted to piggyback on the journey that we had. Was also, I think, there have been a couple of times where Georgia has sent a team to Houston, and it's, like, oh, they're gonna, at the start of the year, like, oh, they're gonna go crazy. I think 1771 last year, Walton in 2019. Like, just the fact that the growth curve of, oh no, this is big brokey, and then just it became a running joke in the team that Otto has to hit rock bottom just so it can do well. And just this season is the epitome of it. Of Gwinnett, it was like, oh, this is real bad, and then all of a sudden we just.
Yeah, there have been jokes in the past that we're just bad through quals, but we'll turn it on for elims. But that the joke was that this was an Otto season, in that we were just terrible for district event through district event, and then district champs. So you just see the see the ramp up happening.
The joke used to be quals don't matter, we'll win elims. Now the joke is district events don't matter, we'll win states.
Yeah, we did. We had an opposite of David's season for district events. Why win those? We're gonna win district champs and
Yeah, well, I thought trading it in, but I mean, I would love to have done what you guys done, but it's tiring.
Oh, yes.
Agreed. And so
It's tiring to keep going like that.
leading into that note, then for my for what's coming in, we've got IRI we're going to in a few weeks here up in Indiana, which we've been to a few years for 2016 through 2018, but making it back up there to compete with some really good teams. So I'll be heading up with the team for that. But in some semi-sad news, I will be retiring as the lead mentor drive coach for 1746 after this having this past season in the books. That I've moved a little bit further away from the team and trying to avoid building that kind of commute into my life for the foreseeable future. So we'll be working on different ways to stay engaged with the first community, because obviously this is too much fun to walk away from. But some big changes at least coming for 1746. But I think we've got some good people in the driver's seat to keep the ball rolling. So
Yep, they definitely have some good people to help them along.
mm-hmm.
With that being said, I think it's good night time.
Good night. Night.
So, good night, everybody.
Night.
We'll see you next time.